Greetings, viewers. My name is Patrick Howell, Chief of the Communications Unit, and we're here with another episode of the Small Business Focus. However, this one is going to be more of a small business focus / inspirational piece. Now, as you know, we only have special guests, and today we have the iconic Vaughn Anslyn. Now, there's so much I could put on this title, but it'll be revealed as we go through. Vaughn, welcome and thanks for coming.
Thank you for the invitation.
I've been asking you for this for a long time.
That is true. That is true.
You're here, so we're gonna so let me explain to you me and Vaughn's connection from way back in school days. I used to go by Vaughn lived right over here, and well, you wouldn't know by me pointing, but Vaughn lived right over here on Chapel Street. Now, give me some of your family background in the house. You, give me your parents, siblings, and stuff.
Well, I grew up being in the shadow of my dad, really, because you don't have a name. You're brother Anslyn's son. And my father was the captain of the Caribbean Queen, and back then that was basically the only ferry service between St. Kitts and Nevis. You know, you leave us at 8 o'clock in the morning. You're not gonna get home until in the afternoon, whether you like it or not. So that was a big connection to the general public and the community on a whole. Everybody knew me through my dad, and that put a lot of pressure on you as a kid, because anytime you get into any trouble, his brother Anslyn's son do it, and you're put.
And a one son to right?
Yes, you walk around with a target on your back. So I had to live in that shadow. And then my mom, she was a big influence in the church, also the director of the Red Cross at the time. So she was a very prominent figure as well. So here am I in a prominent position with these two very powerful parents. And by the way, when I was growing up in prep school, my mom was a teacher in prep school. And so you can imagine going to school and seeing your mom teaching, and then going home and seeing your mother again. Mm-hmm. So all those things, I had to deal with in my early part of the childhood.
And the school, and your house was right around the corner from the school, so you couldn't.
Within walking distance.
Yeah, within walking distance. So, so I'll give you some insight as to when I knew Vaughn was different. So going into Vaughn's room, and why a job been by? Well, prep school days. Vaughn had up in his roof booby.
Pelican.
A pelican, well, booby.
Yes.
Booby pelican. And yeah, so that was taxidermy, right? At that age there.
Right.
So tell me how you even learned about taxidermy.
Well, I was curious. And that's all I could say. I was curious. I would see them sometimes with a deer hanging on somebody's wall and stuff like that. And I was like, how did they do that? I'm not one of those guys that just watch something and know that it works. I want to know how it works. Mm-hmm. So the how part of it was like, okay, so me finding books on taxidermy, me doing research. And back then you didn't have no internet, so you had to go to the library, find what you can. And then at the time, I went to Evelyn's drugstore, and there was a key component of it called borax powder. And that was like a kind of...
The drying agent?
Yes, a drying agent that you put in place. And back then it was sold in little packets, so I would go down there and buy a bunch of these packets, and my mother would come and see me at home doing these things, like, Mom, what are you doing? I was like, I'm trying out something, Mommy, that kind of stuff. So I caught a pelican one time on a fishing line. It was down by the bay, and I brought it home, and I looking at the book, and I'm doing this meticulous scalpel, and I'm cutting away the flesh, and taking the body, and I had the body on the side. And I'm thinking, okay, how do I make? So I have to remake the body cast of it, And basically back then you could buy a molded body, but nah. I'm sculpting it out of foam, and I'm sanding it down, and getting marbles for the eyes, and peeling back the skin to expose the skull. And then the thing is, now the skull part was very interesting, because I had to put it in the pot and boil it.
Yeah.
And my mom saw me doing that. She's like, okay, I don't even want to know. Just make sure you clean up afterwards. So you boil it, you take out all the flesh, and you put it in the ant's nest for 2 days, and the ants eat it out.
Strip it out for you, yeah, okay.
And you take it back and you put it back on, like you put it on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
And you fill in the eye sockets with plasticine and the eyes and stuff like that. Long story short, man, then you wrap it in paper and cardboard, and you gently stroke down the feathers, but then you wrap it up so that when it dries, it stays that way.
Stays out, yeah.
And then so I just did that, and I positioned it up in the roof with some paper and some strings and stuff like that. And when it's done, I had a full pelican flying out in my room. I mean, that was the coolest thing ever to me. And then I started doing crabs as well.
I was going to ask you about this. I remember seeing the crab too. What else besides the crab and the booby you did?
I had a pelican, I had a mongoose
Okay.
as well, you know, and I was just always experimenting with different ideas, man. I always believed that, you know, I was limitless and boundless, and from that early age, I was very, very inquisitive. I used to get a lot of licks for it because I would see a VCR and put in a tape and like, no, I want to see where the tape goes. Yeah. So I would unscrew the entire VCR and then my dad would come home and see all kind of components on the ground and, you know, his licks after that. So,
yeah.
But yeah, it was always in me. I was curious, and I think that progressed into creativity, progressed into the art, and the art thing was like a whole other level.
So let me ask you on that note. At what point, or at least at what age, did you know yourself that you had an affinity for painting, drawing, etc.?
The painting and drawing, it came natural to me. When I was in school, everybody's homework, you know, the geography, the human biology, said, Vaughn, draw this eye for me, draw this diagram for me, and I would whip it off in no time at all. It came natural. It's like breathing. I didn't see it. I did it without any effort. I don't know what guides my hands, but it just does, and it came out, and you know everybody was doing it. But I was always pushing my own boundaries. I think that's the part that gets me the most. I was never satisfied with being told that I am good. I wanted to be better than myself, and I constantly was always developing what I already knew.
All right. So you have this talent, and it's apparent to yourself. Probably were your parents, both parents, encouraging as far as you're drawing yourself?
Actually, no. My dad, he wanted me to be a fisherman, like him and his father before him. You know, something like a family tradition and great generations passed down. You know, I didn't see that. I didn't see myself as doing that. I didn't see myself as toiling over a fishnet in the hot sun all day out at sea. I knew I had a talent, and I think I discovered my gift at an early age, and I think that's something that's missing in most people. They don't discover their purpose, their gift, and their choice of where they are in life and who they are in life, and I think that's one thing that eludes most people.
Well, let me ask you this. You knew you had a talent from back then, but did you know that's what you wanted to do for the rest of your life?
Not really for the rest of my life, but I knew it had to be a part of my life. And so, like my dad, he wanted to be a fisherman. My mom, she always pushed me into, like, when she realized I would be up late at night in the room drawing with my sister sleeping, and I got the light on, she actually built on an extension to the house in the backyard, a little shed, you know, 3 walls and an open space. And she had my uncle Donald, he built a kind of makeshift workbench for me. And that was my workspace. And I would be out there late at night, you know, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. And my mom, bless her soul, she would come out and she wouldn't even disturb me. She would just put down a little plate with a sandwich, a little glass of water or something, and she would leave because she knows that I'm not gonna get up. Because once I'm fixated on something, that's it. Time has no limit. And I think that's where I knew for a fact that this is gonna be a part of my life forever.
Well, it sounds like your mother was your number one cheerleader then?
Right,
even from an early age?
She still is, actually. Yes.
Okay. So, when did you make your first dollar off of art? And I don't know if this was before you, I know you went out to school at one point. You went out to New York, I think it was?
No, I didn't go to art school. I went to New York, but first I went to Miami. And I went to Miami under the inspiration that I was going to learn sign painting.
Okay.
But when I got there, that whole sign painting thing was a money-making sham.
Oh, okay.
So I ended up being homeless on the streets of Miami for like 2 weeks until I found a friend of mine a guy actually, he was from St. Croix, and he was a caretaker for a house. And I only met him because I went through the subway sandwich place, and I recognized immediately his accent. And then we hit up a conversation, and you know, that progressed me into actually working for the subway place. But then I got a job with a sign painter anyway, and that started that ball rolling. But if you want to say what made my first dollar from painting, I'll have to say there was a year when the Queen Elizabeth came to Nevis and the Duke of Edinburgh, and I had to make a sign for the Iron Shed.
Okay.
And it was said, "Welcome to Nevis, His Royal Highness and the Duke of Edinburgh," blah, blah, blah. That. So I did that for the then Honorable Ivor Stevens, and he contacted me, and then he told my dad, I said, well, I will have to pay you for this because I can't have your son doing it for free. And then, so my dad gave him a price and he paid me. And I think that, you know,
You paid your out?
No, of course not. but that in itself got me to thinking about this could be a living. And then I started actually doing sign work, and I did a lot of different things. I would do window tinting for guys, and I would cut out designs in the window tinting. That back then was unheard of, you know, to incorporate art, and not only that, but different colors of window tint. So you create a whole picture. You create a whole picture with just tint alone, which is totally translucent from the inside, but from the outside, you could see one thing I did was really cool was a Spider-Man way back in the day, and he was adding all the blues and the reds and the fine details, but it looked really cool. So those kind of things, I pioneered a lot of this kind of stuff because to me, it was always about pushing the envelope, not following anybody else, but developing something that was never there before. And I think I'm really, really thankful for whatever talents I have to be pushing that progress yourself, not copy anyone else, but to actually develop myself into something that's never been done before.
And this was the tint section. That was before you went off to Miami at the time. That's before.
Yeah. No, this is after I came back. After I came back from Miami. Okay. Miami opened my eyes to a lot of things. The business, how businesses work, how employer relationships are, and I think that set the trend for a lot of things. I got involved with, like Four Seasons. I was a manager at Four Seasons then, because when I came back from I came back from Miami, then I went to New York. And I went to New York because I did sign painting and I had my little business card for my own business, where it was a business. Yeah. But I showed them the card and I got hired straight into management because
at the Four Seasons of New York?
At McDonald's in New York. Mm-hmm. You know, I have a big resume. So I went to McDonald's and I just filled the application because I had management experience. I worked there for I think 2 years. That was in Brooklyn, and I got very good at it. So I was transferred between stores. I was in Brooklyn, then I was in Manhattan, then I was in the Bronx. Yeah, different stores, different locations. But it was cool. But I learned. I went to what was known as Hamburger University in Chicago, and that's exclusively for McDonald's managers, where they teach you everything from the characteristics of a French fry to the temperature of a milkshake to the carbonated to syrup calibration of a Coke, that kind of stuff, and you learn them. And I found it very thorough and very informative. But you also learn management skills, how to resolve employee conflicts, how to eliminate barriers between employer and employees, and that was very, very educational to me. And I found that very fascinating. That's how we look at business in the Caribbean is not how business is structured in the States. We look at it, because we are so friend-oriented, yes, and we know people, we tend to skip the business part of it and more into a personal aspect. But up there is all about cut dry business. Yes. If you don't perform, you're out the door and somebody else is in your spot by the afternoon. It's that simple. But here we tend to get away with murder, not because the employee situation is so vast. I mean limited, but that we know them, and you feel a kind of a way when you fire a friend, and that's the thing. And I think it's a good and a bad that we live in this social structure. But I learned so much from the America, and I think these little steps, when I look back at my life, and I said, I will never discount any good or bad opportunity that came my way, because it helped me to develop to where I am today.
All right, let me jump back into the art part of it. I don't know the subheadings of art. I can't even tell you the different ways of painting and all that. So, how have you? Give me an idea of how you upgraded yourself accordingly as you got older. How did you upgrade yourself, art-wise?
I would.
You say you didn't go to the school. You didn't go to an official school. No, so how did you upgrade yourself?
Well, the thing is, I learned from watching other artists. There was an artist called Boris Vagello. He was a fantasy artist back in the day, and he used to come up with his calendar every year, and it had some fascinating pictures, of human form, people, monsters, mythical creatures, that kind of stuff. And I was always fascinated by that. But I would look at how the texture and the drawing, the intricacy of it, and I would try to copy that as much as I can. The shading, and the hardest part for any artist is to go darker with the images, and that's something you have to learn over time. You darken your image because you're scared you're gonna spoil it. But then came the face. Now, drawing people is one thing, but the face is so geometrically correct that one little thing off would just make the person look like someone else.
Yeah.
That took me about 5 years before I actually showed somebody a drawing of a face that I did, because it was a lot of trial and error, a lot of experimentation, shortcuts. How do I achieve this? How to make this person look not just like them, but capture an emotion, that kind of thing, and through shading and through detail. And I would draw a portrait and I have like 15 different pencils in front of me to draw one picture, but each pencil, different shade, different hardness, different darkness, serve that purpose. And all these things I had to learn from research, from looking at the way things are done, zooming in on pictures to see the strokes of the pencil, different, even not even just using a pencil as shading, but pieces of cotton or your finger or pieces of fabric to get a different kind of texture, a different kind of paper. Some papers have microscopic ridges that change the look of the picture itself. So all these things I had to learn, not by being taught, but from trial and error. Experiment with the different surfaces, different mediums, and it was really, really something. But it was an ongoing process, and to be fair, it's crucial in development. I think when sometimes you taught things, you tend to skip the developmental part of it, and a lot of times we learn things from other people's perspective. Well, I was developing my own perspective. I was developing my own type. If you try to teach somebody something that you did, you're teaching them the way you did it versus the way they should be doing it. And I think if you give 15 artists a leaf to draw, you're going to get 15 different leaves. Not because the leaf looks different, but because the artist's perception of reality is different. And I think that what people can't grasp is that artists see the world differently. We see reds and yellows and shades and stuff like that, and light and contrast, not really looking at reality in its real form, but in an artistic perspective.
Your stint at Four Seasons, you were hired at Four Seasons as exactly what?
When I came back from New York, literally I was on vacation from New York at the time. I was hired as a banquet head houseman, and that was a management position. But then it was just about setting up the meetings and stuff. But being me, I pushed further than my job description. I started drawing the floor plans for the functions. Then I started ordering props to design and decorate the functions. So it wasn't just I wasn't just setting the meetings up, but
so what year what year when you got?
Oh,
would you say you started like between one what?
I was there for 17 years, and I couldn't believe it. To this day, I was there for a long time. But during that time, I was still drawing and painting on my own. I was still doing my own thing, my own signs, my own drawings, my paintings, and I really incorporate them in my work as a separate entity. Like I will hire Vaughn Anslyn the painter from Vaughn Anslyn the head houseman.
Got you.
I never involved my talent with my job description. I tried to separate them, even though they were one and the same. I had a business outside of Four Seasons. A lot of times when you get involved with a work, you think that, well, you have a skill, you should apply it to your business and not get paid for your own skill. I was not doing that. Mm-hmm. So I made sure to separate the two. And whenever I brought in a piece of artwork or something, I would make sure sending a bill for it under my business name.
Okay.
Yeah. But it was very interesting that whole demographic. And actually the title, my job description changed. They changed my job the title to what do they call it? Technical Services Manager. Now that position did not exist in the Four Seasons. They created it because of me and what I did, because I branched out not only into the setup part of it, but into the audiovisual and the lighting, and I would work the projector, the screens. So I had my own audiovisuals department within the banquets department, and that in itself was something very unique because most companies will outsource these things, whereas I was doing it in-house.
Okay, so it's safe to say that during that stint, is that way, like for instance, how did you learn, I'm going to jump forward a second now. We know you said in when you do events and so, there's a lot of carpentry and stuff involved. How did you learn carpentry?
Well, my dad was a good carpenter, and I will always call him a perfectionist in that he will measure twice to cut once, that kind of thing. But he will be very meticulous about the details. Most guys will build something and give it to you, but not him. He will build it, sand it, look at the edges and sand it down, smooth it out, varnish it, that kind of stuff. And my mom will always laugh and said he'd building stuff like it's going to be inspected by the Queen. And at the time, it might have seemed funny, but it showed me the level of respect and care that he put into his work. And I adopted that because I was always the one there to hold the paint, hold the brush, or hold the board while he's cutting it or something like that, or put something in place while he's doing it. And I'm learning, watching him while he's doing that. And I mean, the minute I could, I bought my own saws, my own tools. I have a full carpentry workshop at my house right now. But that in itself was another stepping stone because all these things came together. And it is very, when I look back at it, how these pieces fit into my life to bring me where I am today. They needed to happen. I needed to be there helping my dad so I can learn carpentry, so I can build the sets for these stages, so I can be more efficient at my work at the Four Seasons, so I then can apply the knowledge that I learned from decorators that came in to decorate functions at the Four Seasons and work hand in hand with them and develop not only the skill, but the level of professionalism that it takes to showcase your work. And I really, really am thankful for working at the Four Seasons, not because I was at the Four Seasons, but because of what it taught me as an artist.
Let me ask you this question before your dad left this place. Of all your works, which one of them amazed your father the most or made him more proud?
Well, my dad never really got involved in my work. I remember, okay, I will tell you one thing. There was this one time when there was an art competition. And my dad, he was always beat me when he thought I was tracing, because he would always tell me, no, don't trace. If he sees me tracing something, he said, no, don't trace, you must draw it, And so I started to draw really, really well, and there was this art competition that came up, and I submitted my entry. But when my dad saw it, he said, I thought I told you not to trace. And I told him, I said, no, I didn't trace it, and I put it next to the image that I drew. And mine was actually larger than that.
Yes.
But it was exact. And he couldn't believe it, and then he looked at it, and he looked at it, and he kept looking at both of them. He couldn't believe that this was the drawing and that was the actual picture. And I think that was when I realized that, wow, I think he actually now respects my work. And that moment was like, aha, the aha moment. That was it.
So he was okay with, because a lot of old school fathers are not too much supportive of a child in art. They want you to be more like the more traditional trades like carpenter, electrician, plumber, all like those kind of things. But you tell your father, I'm going to be an artist.
No, he didn't want to hear that. No, I never really said it outright. I want to be an artist. I think in the back of my mind, I knew what I was doing, because while I was at the Four Seasons, like I said, I was developing my painting techniques and all that kind of stuff. I was still drawing very much. I built my house basically through Four Seasons and artwork, and just that, even at home, I did all my carpentry in my house, made all my cupboards, hung all my doors, pinned in the windows, all that kind of stuff, tiled my floors. And then that's a whole separate issue, because I learned all those things as well. But it still lingered in back of me. And then one day at the Four Seasons, after 17 years, I just left. I didn't resign. I just left, because I realized right there and then, I'm worth more than this, and I should be doing something else than this. This is not my calling. And I can remember that day very well. I just walked across the golf course, and my friend Rudolph Budgeon at the time, he came running across. I said, Vaughn, what are you doing? I said, I'm going home. He said, what do you mean you're going home? I said, I'm going home, I'm leaving. He said, what? I was like, yeah, I'm done. So I'm left. So then I was called into a meeting, the next day, and back and forth. And they said, okay, we'll hire you on contract for the next year. Look at this. For that year that I worked on contract, I made more than 3 years of my salary.
Yeah.
And that again, that is when you should know your worth. Always know your worth. I think that is very important to any individual. Sometimes you're worth more than the company's worth to you. And you must do much. And I recognize that. I said, why am I here? I'm making these people money.
But what sparked that day? That same day, it had to be something. You didn't just wake up and say, I'm done, man.
It didn't. But I think it was when things happen in sequence, there's a little thing that happened there, a little thing happened there, and you're like, okay, yeah, and then one time, all it takes is that little straw, and then you remember all those other things, and it's like, you know what, yeah, that's it for me, and there was, whether it be the black and white, local expat demographic that was going on at the time, whether it be the salary disparity, or whether you think you're worth more but you're being paid less, all those little things that came into play. And then me, being an artist, I like to do things my way, and I like to do it with a creative aspect. Well, you're at the Four Seasons now. This is a stringent place where you have to make a plan and write up this and draw a floor plan and you present it and that kind of stuff. And me, I'm just developing it in my head.
Yes.
And I got called all kind of names, Lockton Grant, he was a banking manager at the time. He used to call me the cardio kid, as in cardiovascular, as in I'm a walking heart attack, because I will always make them be nervous before a function, because they don't know what my capabilities are. I know what my capabilities are, but then at the last minute, it comes together.
Gotcha.
In the meantime, they're freaking out, like, oh my God, no, this is that, that kind of course. Me, it's like even now, I apply that same thing. You're like, oh, the night before something, there's no painting on the wall. You go there the next morning, there's a painting on the wall. But I know I work overnight. I know I work in silence with nobody around. But they don't know that. So then they start to freak out, like, oh my God, what are we gonna do? The function's tomorrow and there's nothing there. I'm in total calm and they're panicking. And that used to freak them out. So. But those little things that came together, like, you know what, I'm gonna move on from here. And that was it. And that started what is now VA Designs, which is my company, which I registered, and that started me getting more totally into decor and lighting and props and just the art scene on a whole. Okay.
And the same VA Designs, so I was, a lot of my subtopics here look like everything stems off of Four Seasons, like the wedding setups and stuff.
Yeah, all of those. You see, that's the thing. Four Seasons was an integral part of my decor skills, because art was always there. But what I saw in decor was I could apply a sense of creativity to decor. And I always tell people, I'm not a decorator. I'm an artist that decorates.
Okay.
I'm not a carpenter. I'm a carpenter that build. I'm an artist that builds stuff.
Uh-huh.
I'm not a set designer. I'm an artist that builds sets.
Okay.
Because I put art first in everything that I do, and that's the thing. When it came to decorations, it came easy. It came very easy to me to go out and cut some branches and put them up, and bam, they become instant little decor things. And in a room, I can place stuff. I can create a whole scenery out of nothing, and that's the thing. So those things, and then the exposure that I got from the Four Seasons, seen when they brought in decorators to do the work, and I'm thinking to myself, I can do that. I could do that, and I could do that better than that. So then I started to formulate my own equipment, my own props, my own flowers and all that stuff, and I created my own thing. I built my own little wedding gazebos. I built my own arches because I had the carpentry skills already. So all these things were in a chronological order, but it ultimately led to me doing all these things that I'm doing now.
So you see, viewers, just like me, now I've known Vaughn for years, and I just thought he was this genius that could just say, you know what, I want to learn to play guitar and just do it just like so. But no, as you can see, there's a lot of background work,
Right.
years of work went into where he is right now. He said 17 years and four seasons.
Yes.
That led up to this past week. I didn't know. Just talking to you now, I know. Now I can see there's so much work. Even though you're naturally talented, a lot of background work went into what you did. So let me jump back into the painting now. Now, when did at what point did painting get you into traveling? Like your caliber, you got to that point where people start to call you to go here, there, and everywhere.
Well, that sparked when the internet started to develop into what it is now. When you get into Facebook and Instagram and those kind of things, once people outside of St. Kitts Nevis started to see my work, when I displayed my work, I think my first real job overseas was in Anguilla, where I went down after there was a hurricane, and a friend of mine called me up and said, we got some damaged walls down here, some planks down. We need some beautification in the place. So I said, all right, well, let me craft out about 2 weeks, and I'll come down. So I came down. It's a very interesting story. I asked questions about the culture and history and stuff like that. They had a very cool history of salt picking,
Yes.
yeah, with that part of it, and also they had a big culture of boat racing, both of which I included in my murals. But while I was there was this roundabout, and there's the water dams that we have all over the Caribbean. But they have one there, but just off to the side of the road and covered with bush and stuff. I said, I want to paint that. So then we, went there with machetes and we cut away all the bush and stuff, exposed it, power washed it, painted it white. So then I was there over the course of about almost a week. But there was this one day that I was there painting, and this guy pulled up. And I've seen him before. He's parked across the street and he watched me. But this particular day, he pulled up and he walked over to me and said, "Young man, who are you?" And I said, my name is Vaughn Anslyn, I'm from the island of Nevis. He said, "Well, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm just, beautifying the place. I'm painting a painting on the dam, and you're representative of your culture and the boat racing and stuff like that." So he said, "Well, who's paying you to do this?" I said, Nobody's paying me. A friend of mine called me and asked me to do it, so I'm just doing it for him.
So when you went on it for the 2 weeks, this was free?
Yeah. Oh, wait, let me finish.
Okay.
So then because I didn't see. Okay, this is me. I will. The murals that you see around Nevis.
Yes.
Most of them, 90% of them, I did.
No, wait, you jump ahead. Go back to the thing.
Okay, so I did that for free.
Yeah.
So then he's like, "What?" I was like, yeah. And then he just looked at me and he walked away. I'm like, okay, cool. So I kept on working. About half an hour later, out of the corner of my eye, I see this guy. He's out in the road and he's flagging down cars, and he's with a bucket in his hand, and he's watching people, and then I'm seeing him putting money in the bucket or something, peanut butter. Until he gets closer to me now, and he's coming walking, and I hear him say, "Support the artist." Support the artist, he's here to beautify the country. I'm like, what is this guy doing, But anyway, keep on painting. At the end of it, about maybe an hour or so, he walks over and he puts down the bucket in front of me. I said, "Young man, this is for you." Mm-hmm. I said, "All right, thank you." I'm looking at it, and you can see US and EC dollars, I was like, "All right, thank you so much. And he just turns and he walks away. I'm like, okay, what is this? So I just pushed the bucket to the side, continued painting. And then at the end of the day, when Justvic, that's Justvic Heiliger, that's his name.
He's on the car down there?
Yes, Justvic Heiliger.
Oh, okay, I know that name.
Yes. So he came, picked me up, and I told him the story. He's like, "What?" He's like, yeah. I get home, it's about $400 and I think $80 US and 300 and something EC. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, wow, that really shook me, because I'm just doing it out of the goodness of my heart. But then somebody thinks that I need to be compensated for it, which is all well and good. But I learned a valuable lesson then. It's like, you shouldn't don't look for things. I don't think you should look for. It's like recognition. Don't look for it. If it comes, it comes. But don't let that be the goal of your choices. I didn't go there to look money. I didn't go there to get paid, but it came anyway, in a way that I could never thought that would ever be possible. And then from that, I got hired to do a mural at the Four Seasons in Anguilla. And there you
Off
go.
of that same thing?
Off of that job, because then they saw me doing that and they got my contact information. So then here I was now back in Anguilla, staying at the Four Seasons in Anguilla, doing a mural of Mr. Sharp, the founder of Four Seasons, and some paintings in the hallways, and they exist there to this day. So that was a very, very cool experience. And since then, I've traveled to Grenada, I've traveled to Anguilla, I've traveled to Antigua, Barbuda, St. Kitts, a lot of different. I've done work in Miami, in Leeds, London, Dubai. It's amazing.
Nigeria.
Now Nigeria. Now Washington D.C. It's amazing. And so I see these things as almost out of body experiences. Like I will always look back at my days in the shed in the back of the yard and think, I would have never thought that I would be this far where I am today. That is in itself.
And some of it, apart from eternity, it traces back to your parents again, like your mother, like you said, your mother, you're out there in the shed, your mother bringing you the sandwich, so she is supportive already, and then your father coming behind and demanding nothing but excellence.
Right, exactly.
Perfection.
Right, exactly. And those things correlated so well that you would not even notice it until you look back at it. And it's like, when your parents used to tell you something and you hate them for then, but then you grow up and you look back at it and say, man, they were leading me in the right direction.
All right. So again, back to the Anguilla thing. Okay, you did the dam. Now you could jump into some of the other works you've done. Your fun projects. Well, the non-paid ones.
Well, the projects here, they were experimental because I never really did murals before. I did artwork and I did paintings in my house, but never in no public spaces. I wanted to do that. So I always believe if you ask the questions, you're gonna give someone the opportunity to tell you no. Yeah. So I just got up and saw an abandoned building, go out there and painted white one day, and I said, let me put an image here and see how it would look and learn from it. Because
which one was that one? Which was the
that
first one?
One was the one down on the Bay Road.
Low Street there?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
It has two women's faces on it.
Yes.
Now
was there any blowback on that?
Huh?
Was there any blowback on that after you did it?
No, actually no. Okay. None. They were actually glad. I was beautifying an eyesore. So it was just a broken down building that was damaged from a hurricane that no one ever bothered to fix up. He was just there. So I added some color to it in something that normally would look derelict. Now it's a work of art that people pull over and walk through the bushes to take pictures in front of. So yeah, and it's just an abandoned house.
Yes.
Now it becomes a work of art. That's the thing. But yeah, and that was like a learning process. I learned, scale, because it's one thing to do a drawing, a brush stroke like this on a canvas is a brush stroke like this on a mural, and it's a totally different brushes and totally different scope, and then you almost have to step back to see it, because up close it doesn't look like anything. It's when you step back from a distance and look back at it, it's like the picture starts to present itself.
So tell me about the pressure of doing the cricketer's mural.
Oh man, that.
Tell me about that. You talk about skill, because I know. That's a big one.
Okay,
there,
so that this is something like where, and I heard James Cameron said it best. He said, "I had the idea for Avatar in my head, but I needed technology to catch up to what I wanted to do. I always wanted to do large-scale murals like that, but I needed my ability to catch up to that. Right. So it took me the years of doing portraits by pencil, it took me years of doing murals to now reach to where they asked me to do these cricketers on a wall. I'm like, okay.
Who asked you?
It was actually, you wouldn't believe it, disaster management.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
That wall belongs to them, by the way?
Yes. Because it started out as drawing different things like hurricane preparedness and tsunami preparedness and stuff like that. And I was like, Brian, I said, Brian,
yeah.
I really don't want to put a bunch of disasters on a wall where students are walking up. That's a kind of different energy. So come back again with that. So then he got into, well, this is the cricket thing. So I'll tell you what, put the West Indies cricketers up there and do that. So then I went around and got the, the names and different portraits and face pictures and stuff like that. And they all were very, very enthusiastic, except one. And if you can see there's a blank space there with a name, but no face. Because that, I had no idea of the story or the backstory, and I didn't care. I just knew that this one individual was very adamant about his face being put on that wall.
Oh, he didn't want his face there?
He didn't want his face there.
Oh,
but
okay.
I was contracted to do a job, so then I wrote the name, I left the space blank, and whatever questions they can ask, proceed to ask the individual why his face was not there. I think he feels some kind of way about it now, because that has become a very big focus of a lot of people, including tourists who, come by and take pictures by it and stuff like that. But yeah, so the exact nature of those faces, when you drive down the road and you look at that wall, you instantly can tell who they are. And that again, like I said, took me the years that I took to actually develop my talent and my skills to where it was to be able to do that. And since then I've now escalated past that.
Okay. And that's okay. So since that one, what other murals have you done? Oh, no, go ahead.
Well, since that, most of my murals are now in St. Kitts. I did a few of there are 3 of them I did at the airport in St. Kitts in the departure lounge that most people would not see unless they are down by the JetBlue section.
About the easy ones, man. Tell about the steps.
Oh, get into that. But then there was this job to paint the market. Now, the market was in itself a whole picture. Well, I didn't want it to just paint fruits and vegetables and stuff like that. I wanted to do something abstract and colorful. But then, during that, it was a beautification project that the Honorable Marsha, State Kitts Tourism Manager, she had this beautification project going on. So they went and they painted over some steps that they had there. Because they asked me, what would it take for, what do I want to be done? So I said, well, just paint everything white, and then I'll go from there. But the general public got involved politically because they did not know the backstory behind it. All they saw was a bunch of people from this party painting over work that party did.
Gotcha.
So before they even asked the question as to what is going on, they immediately thought that, oh, you're vandalizing our work by painting it off and turning it white. That was never the case. I wanted it painted white because I was putting back what they had there. Only I was focusing on the steps itself to add an image to that already completed color scheme. So it was a bunch of political back and forth until they saw what I did. Now let me tell you, it's one thing to paint on a wall, a flat wall, one surface. Imagine painting on 15 surfaces at different distances,
yes.
A little piece of each one, but have them lined up so that when you stand up in front of it, it all comes together. Let me tell you, I did not know why I took on that job at the time.
So that was your first time? That was
the first time I've even attempted something like that. And I'm like, okay, Vaughn, you said you can do it. Now let me see how you're going to do it. And that's the thing. So I literally went home and I drew up the steps and I drew up the image that I wanted. I said, okay, how am I going to do this now? And then, typically you'll create a grid where you can then think of, but then you still have to run back and forth because then you have to. So I created what you call a sweet spot. I put an X in the road. I said, okay, this is where I'm going to stand, and all these lines have to line up from here. Because then if it lined up from here and lined up from there, it look weird.
Oh, gotcha.
So there's a photographic spot on the road that you stand right there, everything lined up perfectly. And that's how they do like street art as well, street art on the sidewalks and stuff. There's one specific spot that if you stand there, everything will look 3D.
Yeah.
So that's what, and I worked on that, and it came out pretty good.
How long
And
was that first one? How long it took?
The time one, it takes a day.
Oh,
it
okay,
literally
okay.
takes, you start in the morning and by sometime in the night you're done. Because you can't stop. You can't leave off and come back. It's not that kind of job. So I would typically start at around 2 a.m. because I made sure there was a street light there. And I start around 2 a.m. and it would go straight down to almost 2 p.m.
Okay.
Yeah, so that
Any distractions from the...
well, no, there's always the
residents?
the people that come up and they drop their comments. And some are praise, some are curse, but you kind of tune them out. You just answer, yeah, man, okay, cool, okay, yeah, okay, thank you. You just keep going. Don't engage. It takes two to have a conversation. So, but I think at the end of it was mostly positive because they then realized what was the end goal.
Okay.
So that was the first step. Now the second step that I did, which was very recently, a couple of days ago, that was met without any backlash whatsoever.
That's a different set of steps?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
yeah.
I thought you went over and did over the turtle.
No. The turtle is here, but then the next one is further down, like about
Gotcha.
3 streets down.
Gotcha.
This is now the next step, but this one was wider, bigger. And so, again, I'm challenging myself as usual. I did a turtle with solid colors. Now I'm going to go do a pelican with blended colors.
Okay.
Now everything, painting colors, solid colors is one thing. Imagine shading on different steps.
Yeah.
Good Lord. But I'm always up to the challenge. I'm my own challenge. And they didn't pick these images. I picked these images myself. They didn't tell me what to do. I just came up with the ideas. And the turtle represents the conservation, and the pelican represents national pride. And it also reflects on the fishing village that Newtown area used to be, and that kind of stuff. So all these things played into my choices for the images and stuff like that. And of course I presented them before I did them for approval. But yeah, that they were basically put in place, and then so yeah, that was something. But it was again another learning experience for me. So now, if I'm ever asked to do a step, I know exactly what to do, how to do, and trust me, it'll be much, because this one took me half the time that the other one did.
Okay.
So, I like that.
All right. Well, recent. We're talking about recent things now. Tell us a bit about your Nigeria experience.
Okay, so let me step back one step. There's an art exhibition, an art competition that I entered in Washington, D.C. that was, I think it was something to do with OAS, I'm not quite sure. But I read about this competition online on Facebook, and I entered. And lo beholds to me, I won the competition. Now, this is a painting that I had at home. I had actually dedicated it to my mother. It was called Mosaic, the many pieces it takes to create a strong black woman. And what it symbolizes is like a mosaic picture, all these little pieces of glass, but they come together to create the face of this woman. So I dedicated it to my mother. So that's the story that I submitted along with the piece. Well, I won the piece. I won the art competition, and I was invited up by the museum of Washington, D.C., and St. Kitts Nevis Consulate got involved, and I signed over the rights to the image to them, and now that painting is on permanent display in Washington, D.C., in the Museum of the Americas. Fast forward now, because of that, that alone was out there. The other day, I saw that same image being used as the cover for the OAS conference in the United States.
But you already signed over your rights.
Right, but that's okay. That's okay. I don't. I'm just glad that my work is there.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So then, I get called by this owner of a gallery in Miami who saw these pieces, and he said, I'm following your work, and I want you to come up to Miami to see how you can display your work at my gallery. I want you to be a part of an exhibition I have coming up. Great. I did about 7 to 8 pieces, and I flew up to Miami, put them on display, and it was very interesting to me because for the first time, I was now seeing my work in an arena with other artists. And usually I will have an exhibition on my own. But here I am now with one wall and other artists there and one wall next to me. And then I realized it's kind of like you see how well you are against other people on an international scale. And the curator of the museum, he further cemented that. He said, "Man, your work is excellent. Look at what you're doing here, and look at all these others." And that alone was like a really good sense of accomplishment for me, because I really enjoyed being in that arena. But what I also did while I was inspecting other artists, seeing how they do things, and picking up little things along the way, what I noticed of that the art from Africa in particular, they use a lot of real life elements. They will sprinkle dirt on the paint to give it texture. They will use fabric in the painting to create fabric, to make the look of fabric. And from that, I was like, I gotta try this. So no more than about 2 weeks after I got home from that exhibition, I got to work on this painting. And it was an African-looking mother, and they carry their children on their back, and had a child on their back. But I was more focused on using our own fabric, madras, as the head wrap and as her clothing. And so I integrated them, and I looked at it and was like, okay, this is a cool painting, man. It came out nice. And I posted it. Unbeknownst to me, behind the scenes, there was this African trip being organized to go to Nigeria. So upon me posting that picture, I get a call from Samal Duggins saying that, I saw this piece that you posted, and I want you to bring that piece to me. We're inviting you to come to Nigeria with the delegation and to represent St. Stephen's as an artist. So I, got a couple of my pieces together, went to Africa with this piece, and it really went full circle. As you notice, the different little pieces, little things that were put in place to lead me right back to Africa, where I learned and I got the inspiration from to make that piece. Now here I am now in Africa, presenting it to a museum in Africa from St. Kitts Nevis. And now that work is on permanent display in a museum in Africa.
Vaughn, I noticed you mentioned, and you've done it 2 or 3 times, about opportunities being sparked by things that you've posted. So would you say, because we bring it up a lot in these kind of interviews, would you say social media is a very important tool, marketing-wise?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that social media is an excellent tool. It makes the world a smaller place because you get recognized. And the thing is, a lot of kids out there, they don't see the power of the social media. They use it for their little TikTok videos and, 12 seconds of fame. But if you have a skill, you can market yourself with a worldwide audience. It's so easy because, back then, the only people that had this kind of platform were newscasters and celebrities and stuff. You realize now everybody's a celebrity. Everybody has the same microphone. Everybody has the same platform. We're all on one level when it comes to exposure. But so much of us use it for the wrong reasons and in the wrong way. Me, I post my work and I post the development stages of my work, and that reiterates who I am. It puts me out there, and it gets me recognition in ways that I never thought possible.
Well, we could talk later, but I got to start. Let me. This is something important here. Tell me about, from your perspective, instances where you've given back or mentored.
I think that as an artist, I have a responsibility. It's my calling. I have a responsibility for the preservation of culture, of life, of things and people. I think if you go into the bakery in town, the Nevis Bakery, you'll see portraits of people that we all knew as kids growing up.
Yes.
The Dabby, the Jam Them, the Helen Hago, stuff like that.
Helen
Hago. No, I wasn't asked to do these drawings,
Yes.
but I did them because these are people who are part of my culture and part of my life. They are famous for being infamous, and you can argue about success and people being fame and everything, but at the end of the day, everybody knows them for who they were, and I like to put those kind of people out there. I think the first instance of that, if you can remember back to the Mr. Cool show.
Yes.
I entered that show, and at the time, people thought it was funny that what am I going to do as a talent? Am I going to paint somebody on stage? And they actually said that as a joke, because again, no one ever done it before. They didn't think it was even possible to draw somebody in 7 minutes. But I did it, and I did it not just paint a person, but I painted a picture of, back then, it was a guy named Thunder. He was a fife player,
yes.
And he was big, a young guy, but he was big in the string band.
Yes.
And consequently, tragically, he died just a year after that. But people remembered him because of the painting on stage. Because at the end of the painting, I brought him out on stage, and he stood next to the painting with the fife in his hand, the exact same image. And that, again, showed me the importance of recognizing people on a whole, just for being themselves. And I saw it as my way of immortalizing people. You create that in people's mind. They remember things like that. You walk into the bakery, you're gonna be like, oh man, well look, that's Dan Bam, that's and they spark a conversation from that alone. Now the cricketers on the wall, same thing. They are there, and they're there for as long as they last. And that's the thing. And I think that as I discover more of my purpose in life, I try to paint people, but also meaning. And I think that's the immortal part of it, is that art is never ending. And I think anyone who gets into art, they will see it as something more than, it's bigger than themselves. I see what I do now bigger than myself. I think that in essence, I could never die, because I'm in Africa, I'm in New York, I'm in Egypt, I'm in Washington, I'm in Anguilla. I'm all over the world. And if you look on a wall, like, oh my God, that's my name. And even somebody who saw me the other day said, Vaughn, I was in Washington, I was in the museum, and I saw a painting with your name on it.
Yeah.
You know how that feels? Like a random stranger who comes to you, are you Vaughn Anslyn? Oh my God, I just saw your painting in Washington, D.C. That is crazy to me. Being met in supermarkets. Mr. Anslyn, I really appreciate you, and I follow your work, and I think you're a genius and you're excellent. Hearing these things from strangers,
yes,
it's very, very overwhelming, if you will, because these things are, you don't expect them to happen to you. I don't see myself as any kind of celebrity or anything like that. I just see myself as an artist trying to better himself, period. But it's how other people perceive you that really sets the tone sometimes in life, and I think we should be very aware of the impact we make on other people's life when we get into things like art or something like creative. When you put yourself out there, be careful of the message that you're sending, because somebody is learning from it, whether it be negative or positive.
All right. What's the name of your company again? Vaughn Anslyn,
VA Designs.
VA Designs.
And it says D Signs, S-I-G.
Oh, Designs, like the local twang.
Yeah, Designs, but it's Designs.
So, give the viewers an idea of what all VA Designs offers.
We don't have all day.
No. Good quick run.
Okay. VA Designs is a self-owned, self-taught company. It's basically art in every form, whether it be decor, lighting, props. I also do movie background sets designs, stage designs. You can hire me to do paint and sip parties, which I've done. You can hire me to make carpentry, original, different type of furniture, that's never been seen before, that kind of thing. I do a lot of original work. You can hire me to paint portraits of your family, paint murals in your house, that kind of thing. It's a very wide scope, but it all under the umbrella of art.
Okay, that's a lot of different facets to your company. But and I read in my little research thing here, a word came up: solopreneur.
Yes.
So, tell us, how does that apply to you?
Well, the thing is, an entrepreneur, I think, is someone who does something that's been done. Mm-hmm. Me, I've grown a business from something that didn't exist. I've developed my business into something that wasn't ever done before. There's no artist that does art, just art. You'll find artists that has a 9-to-5 job and does art in their spare time, or somebody who is a decorator but they're still a lawyer, something like that. But to say you're going to do it 100% into art and develop it from yourself, from within, it's unheard of. It's never been done, and I don't think I've seen anyone around here do it. I've seen people try to do it, but it takes a lot of time, effort, and energy. And the thing about it is, the biggest part of it is creativity. Mm-hmm. And like I said before, I'm an artist that decorates. These are people who are decorators.
Yes.
They can hang stuff and put stuff in place, but the creativity behind it is something that you cannot copy. It's something that you cannot learn. Somebody asked me, Vaughn, why don't you teach somebody how to draw? I said, I can't do that. Mm-hmm. I can't teach you to draw. Mm-hmm. I can develop your technique in drawing, but I can't teach you to draw. I can teach you technique, I can't teach you creativity. That you must be born with. That you must show me a drawing that you've done. And I said, okay, maybe you can go darker here on the shading, which I do a lot of times online. People send me their work and I said, Mr. Anslyn, please critique this. How can I do this better? And there's one tutor student that I have in Jamaica that sends me their work constantly, and they've gotten so much better at their work. And I'm really amazed that I can contribute to that. But yeah, and these are things I do without recognition. I don't like to put myself on a pedestal to be recognized. And I think that's a big part of me that I can't even understand. I will do murals and paintings and then just walk away. I don't go online and trying to showcase my work or tell somebody, oh, I did this, and no. I was like, okay, just there. I will put a little phrase like, that's that, and I'm done. And that's about it.
So Vaughn, tell me about the current state of artists, young up-and-comers in Nevis. You recently were at the art show at the Malcolm Gishard Park, so give me your impression of what you saw.
Well, I think the upcoming artist has a real good chance of developing their skill. The problem with artists nowadays is that how should I put it? They lack focus. They're bombarded by so much distractions. Social media being the biggest one, and I think they're overcome by AI and as well. And to a lot of people, art is a dying art. The real part of it, the real artistry behind it, the real creativity behind it is taking over. I mean, me personally, I can ask ChatGPT anything and it'll give me an image or 10 versions of the image, and I can choose one. I mean, now you can use that as a tool, yes, or you can use it to totally take over your business, but then you lose the creative part of you. I use technology as a tool, but I don't ever use it as the base of my business. I leave the creativity for myself. I just ask for help in that way. It's like a hammer. You can use a rock, or you can use a hammer. The hammer is a tool, the rock is a tool, but the hammer is something that's made to make your job easier. It's the same thing. Use it how it is, not to use that as your focus. And I think the kids nowadays, they're being told or being fed this information that if you can't do it in 15 seconds, then it's not worth doing.
Yes. And
I think they seek validation from people that don't offer constructive criticism. They offer negative connotations to anything. People are bombarded by negativity. You shouldn't be doing this, don't do that. I think everyone needs to just make up their own minds, but it's so hard in today's world that the kids of today and the artists of today, they have it very hard. I consider myself a one-off. I grew up in the right time, in the right space, and applied what I did at the right moment. And that's where I'm at today. For someone else to follow my exact path, good luck to that. It's not, it won't be the same. And that's the thing.
Well, I was going to ask if this is something encouraging to budding artists who, like you said, it's a rough road in today's climate. But what would you say to the few that are gifted, young, coming up, that want to say, you know what, I want to do something like what Vaughn does? Not necessarily the events, but just a raw artist.
I think they should live their dream and not their parents' dream. Mm-hmm. A lot of times their parents tell you what to do and what to study, and you're going to become this, or you're going to do that. Had I done that, I'd be out on the sea right now fishing, maybe miserable.
Yes.
Or some other kind of lifestyle. I would not be here having this interview with you. That's the thing. I think we should learn to follow our own heart, do what makes us happy. And it's usually the unpopular road. It's usually the hardest road, but it is the most rewarding. And I think at the end of the day, we have choices to make. And that's the thing. It's a duality. Your choice and your consequence. Are you willing to take the consequence of that choice? But I think at the end of the day, we all should follow our own hearts. And I encourage anyone to follow their heart, live their dream, push it as far. If you want to be an astronaut, be an astronaut. You are the only person that can stop you. We're all born. You have air in our lungs. We're all in the same human skin. What we do from there determines our future. So if you want to do an astronaut, go look for astronaut stuff and study astronaut stuff and be on that path. But don't sit back and fold your arms. I want to be an astronaut and wait for it to happen. It's not going to happen. Do it. You have to go out there and push yourself to do it. If I didn't be on the streets of Miami homeless, if I wasn't broke and down and out of my luck, if I didn't experience a sham and a total disarray, if I wasn't pushed back, I would have never been moving forward. And I didn't come this far to come this far. You understand?
Well, how much years do you think Vaughn Anslyn got in doing what you do?
I don't know. I'll probably be in my coffin with a paintbrush in my hand. That's the gist of it.
I can note you stop go down in the tombs. You haven't seen you paint a tomb in a while.
No, because the thing is, when you pioneer something like that, people follow. There's a guy in St. that I saw posted something that he did just like that. A guy, an airbrush artist, went down there. I was like, great. If I can motivate somebody to do something, perfect. I don't mind people being inspired by me. I don't want to take on that mantle of I'm going to do it all. No. But if I was the pioneer to do it, and then you follow, I feel very good that you are following in my footsteps. I'm not selfish like that. I don't want it all for me. I just want to be able to get it out there and then make it at a higher level. And now that's the thing. Now, anyone that follows me has to be better than me. And my standard is very high. So to come to the next artist that comes along my way, great. Be better than me. I would encourage that, to be better than Vaughn Anslyn, because Vaughn Anslyn is always striving to be better than himself.
Have you done any of those tomb ones since your father?
Oh yeah, man. I did probably about 10 of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've done a few in St. Kitts,
Okay.
A footballer with him kicking a goal into the net. I've done a politician guy actually did the top of the tomb. Yeah, I've done a few. A lot of them.
All right, well, last words, Vaughn. It's on you. We're starting off here.
Last words.
Unless you want to say anything I didn't ask you, but yeah, we're in the last one.
Well, as an artist, I never finish a painting. I just stop working on it. Art is eternal. Art is very extensive. It has no limits. It's boundless. And it's a godlike experience to create something from nothing. I don't think I have ever encountered anything, any job, any kind of feeling that I get other than when I'm there alone at 2 a.m. with a painting in front of me and a canvas, and paints, and I'm just creating an image with just dabs of paint from nothing. And I think that is the reason I do what I do. And I continue to do it because I can't see myself doing anything else. Anybody who has any ounce of creativity, whether it be dancing, drawing, sculpture, they know what I'm talking about. And just stay on that path.
So let me ask you, as a musician, and I always say the way we go segue again. Did you ever see you put into your projects? How come you never were interested in taking up a musical instrument?
And that's not my gift.
No, but you ever tried?
No.
You just weren't interested?
No, the brush is my gift.
Mm-hmm.
Your music, that's your gift. Your little double banjo, that's your gift. That's what you push. I don't think you'll be a thing that, like, let me pick up a paintbrush and go paint like Vaughn.
The reason I ask, remember you go beyond painting, your carpentry. You do carpentry at a higher level. So that's another thing. That's not a brush.
I know.
You know what I mean? So you still.
That's a different skill set. It's like carpentry and art. They kind of almost go hand in hand. You're creating something. With music, it involves a totally different set of sensations. Your ear. Mine's are more eyes and hands.
Okay.
Yours are more ears and hands. You understand? So that is a different linkage in your brain. I will do these creative things with my hand and my eyes. You know, could be blind and you're still creating music. I can't be blind and create art. You understand? So we're on two different artistic channels.
Gotcha.
This is mine. I'm encompassed here, but I don't dare step out of that and go over to music, because then I'll incorporate my ears, and if I use my ears, then my eyes will start to go. You understand? You lose focus of one
discipline.
right?
Yeah, gotcha.
Right, when you go into the other. So you're in that part. That's great. I'm over here in my part.
Gotcha. Well, folks. Well, I say got things to go do.
Always.
So we're going to end this one off. Thank you again for tuning into another episode of the Small Business Focus / Inspirations. Today our special guest again was Mr. Vaughn Anslyn. We're going to put his contact information back here on the screen. And again, thanks for tuning in. See you next time. Thank you, Vaughn.
Anytime.
Yeah.